Everyone, and welcome back to our channel. So we shall continue with the respiratory system. In this particular video we shall cover the lungs. Okay, so as you are all aware about the different parts of the respiratory system, that is the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchi, which we have covered so far. Okay, so most of these act as the conducting zone of the respiratory system. So functionally it can be divided into two zones: the conducting zone okay. So all these parts which we have discussed so far, they act as the conducting zone. Okay. So today we shall consider the next zone, that is the respiratory zone, okay, that is present within the lungs. So in this particular zone, the actual function of the respiratory system, that is the main role, that is the exchange of gases, right. So that's the main function of your respiratory system, right. Which type of gases are exchanged? Exchange means one gas will enter the body, another gas will be removed out of the body, right. So that's why it is called as exchange. So at the same time two gases are moving in opposite direction, that's why it is called as the exchange of gases. Okay. So which gases will be exchanged now in the lungs? So that is the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Okay. So oxygen will be entering into the body and carbon dioxide it will be given out, because that's a gaseous waste. Okay. So in other words, this particular system also acts as a excretory system to remove the gaseous waste from the body. Okay. So also certain drugs which are gaseous in nature, these may also be excreted out of the body or eliminated from the body through the respiratory system. Okay. So we shall consider the last organ in the respiratory system, that is the lungs. Okay. Lungs, because these are paired, right, because there are two lungs in our body. Okay. Now what is the actual meaning of this particular term? Why these are known as lungs? Okay. So the meaning of this word is lightweight. That's because lungs are actually floating, because they are filled with air. Okay. That's why this term is assigned to this particular organ. So these are paired cone shaped organs which are located in the thoracic cavity. Okay. If you can recall the organization of the human body, there are specific cavities which are present, right. Okay. So the diaphragm, it actually divides the trunk into two cavities. Okay. The superior one is known as the thoracic cavity, in which the lungs, the heart are located, whereas inferior to this diaphragm is the cavity known as the abdominal cavity. Okay, so in which the visceral organs like your most of the digestive organs such as the liver, stomach, intestines. Okay, so this is more appropriately called as the abdominopelvic cavity. In the pelvic region, mostly the reproductive organs or the excretory organs are present. Okay, so lungs, these are present in the thoracic cavity, superior to the diaphragm, which is a dome shaped skeletal muscle involved in the ventilation or breathing or your respiration. Okay, so these lungs which are paired in nature, so these are separated from each other by heart. So in between these two lungs is located the heart. You all must have studied about the location of the heart. So it is located in between the lungs. So also there are certain other structures which are present in the mediastinum, like your esophagus is also passing through, right? Okay, so these two lungs are separated by several structures which are present in between them. Okay, so as you can see that this thoracic cavity, this can be divided into two anatomically distinct chambers, the right side and the left side, which will contain the right and the left lung respectively. Okay, so since these two lungs are independent of each other, if there is any situation such as trauma which causes one lung to collapse, say supposing one of the lung collapses, say the right lung collapses, but still the other one, this remain expanded, it will still remain functional because these two lungs are independent of each other. As you can see the position of the lungs, that's C1, okay, right side and the left side. So at the center heart is located, right? So this is the picture which is showing the transverse plane across the lungs. So as you can see that this is your heart. Okay, so it is separating the two lungs, right? The right lung from the left lung. As you can see on this side, that's the left lung. Okay, now each of these lungs are enclosed by a protective layer, which is a double layered serous membrane, and this membrane which is enclosing the lungs independently, both the lungs, these are known as the pleural membranes. So there will be one pleural membrane which is enclosing the right lung, another one which will enclosing the left lung. Okay, so it's a double layered membrane. Now the superficial layer, that is the outer layer, that is known as the parietal pleura. That's the one. This is the one. So this is actually lining the wall of the thoracic cavity, right? This is the one, as you can see. And the deeper layer which is actually in contact with your lung, which covers the lung, that is known as the visceral pleura. Okay, so visceral pleura is actually in contact with the lungs. Okay, so that's your parietal pleura and that's your visceral pleura. So as you can see in between these two pleurae, as the visceral and the parietal pleurae, there is a small space, right, as you can see over here, that's the one. There is a space, right, in between. So this particular space is known as the pleural cavity. So this pleural cavity, it contains a small amount of lubricating fluid which is secreted by these membranes. So this fluid which is present within this pleural cavity, which is a space between the two pleurae, that is parietal pleura and the visceral pleura. So this pleural fluid, now what is the role of this pleural fluid? Why it is present? So this helps in reducing the friction between the two membranes. There are two membranes, right? So imagine if they come in contact with each other, because the lungs, they expand, right? When you breathe in, the lungs will actually expand. Okay, so the gap in between, it contains a fluid which will prevent any kind of friction between the two membranes, so that they can easily slide over one another while you breathe. Okay, so also this particular fluid, it also helps these two membranes to adhere to each other. They stick together because of this pleural fluid which is present in between. Just like the water, it causes the two glass slides, microscope slides, to stick together. Okay, so this particular phenomenon is known as the surface tension. So it prevents the friction, and also it is keeping these two layers together. Now there are separate pleural cavities surrounding the right as well as the left lung, as you can see. Okay, so this cavity is separate from the left one. Now sometimes the inflammation may take place in this particular region, in the pleural membrane. So that condition is known as pleurisy or pleuritis, ITS. When you have this suffix, it indicates that the inflammation is present in the particular area. So when there is inflammation in the pleural membranes, it is known as pleuritis or pleurisy. So it may result in pain due to friction between these two layers. Sometimes the inflammation may persist for a long period of time, so that excess fluid accumulation may take place in this particular space, and this condition is known as pleural effusion. Okay. Now this picture depicts the actual position of the lungs within the thoracic cavity with reference to the ribs. Now the lungs, these are protected by the rib cage, right? As you can see, this is the sternum, that's the collarbone, which is known as the clavicle, so it's paired. So also there are ribs, right? How many pairs of ribs are present? Yes, there are 12 pairs of ribs, out of which the last two are floating, right? So these ribs, which are anteriorly connected to the sternum, some are directly connected, some are indirectly connected. So these ribs, these are C-shaped, right, and they connect with the respective thoracic vertebra in the posterior aspects. So it's connected to your vertebral column, right, the 12 thoracic vertebra to which these ribs are connected to. Okay, so this arrangement of the ribs around the thoracic cavity, it helps in protecting the vital organs. Just like your skull is protecting your brain, the vertebral column is protecting the spinal cord. So similarly, this rib cage is protecting the lungs and the heart, which are present within the thoracic cavity. Somewhere over here will be located the dome shaped diaphragm, which separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. Okay. So these lungs, they extend from the diaphragm to the slightly superior regions of the clavicles. As you can see, this is the level of clavicle, but the lungs are extending slightly superior to these clavicles. Okay. Now, the inferior border of the lungs, which is broad, that is known as the base of the lung. So, this particular region, that is the base of the lungs, it is actually concave in shape. So, it will fit exactly into the convex area of the diaphragm. Then the narrow superior portion of the lung, that is known as the apex of the lung. These are the ones. Now, the surface of the lungs, which is lying against the ribs, this one, the anterior surface, that is called as the costal surface. So, this will match the rounded curvature of the ribs. Then the mediastinal surface or the medial surface of each lung. As you can see, that is the medial surface of the lungs. Okay. So, here again you can see the base of the lungs and the apex of the lung, and as you can see that the shape to fit against the diaphragm. Okay, so accordingly these lungs are shaped so that they fit in that particular space. Okay, now coming to the mediastinal surface, it contains a region known as the hilum or hilus. That's the one. So here both the lungs are depicted. As you can see, the slight change in the shape and size of both the lungs. Okay, now in the mediastinal surface is present the hilum. Now what is this hilum? Now it is the area through which the bronchi, what are bronchi? Remember, trachea, it branches into the primary bronchi, right? The right primary bronchi will enter into the right lung, and the left primary bronchi, it will enter into the left lung. Okay, so this bronchi, it enter into the lung through this particular hilum. Apart from that, the pulmonary blood vessels, pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins, these are the ones which are supplying to the lungs, right? So these also enter through the hilum. Then the lymphatic vessels and the nerves also enter and exit the lungs at this particular point, which is known as the hilum. So all these structures which we have seen, so all these are held together by the pleura and the connective tissue. So together it constitutes the root of the lungs. This particular area, which comprise of the bronchi, pulmonary blood vessels, lymphatic vessels and the nerves, which are held together by the pleura, which is covering the lungs, it is in continuation over here. Also it is surrounded by the connective tissue. So collectively it is known as the root of the lung. Now as you can see, the left lung, it has a concavity right over here in this region, which is absent over here. So that's the cardiac notch into which the apex of the heart lies. If you can recall the cardiovascular system, you all must have studied this. The heart, the tip of the heart, it is slightly tilted, right? It's towards the left hand side. People say that the heart lies on the left hand side, but actually the heart lies at the center and the apex of the heart is actually pointing towards the left hand side. So it slightly enters this particular lung. So there is a concavity which is created over here due to the entry of apex over here of the heart. So it produces a small concavity that is referred to as the cardiac notch. Okay. So because of this, actually the left lung, it is about 10% smaller than the right lung. Okay. Now this right lung is somewhat thicker and broader, as you can see, from the left. So it is broader as compared to the left lung. Also it is thicker, thickness is more. But at the same time it is also shorter as compared to the left lung, right? As you can see over here. Okay. Now that's because the diaphragm, it is higher on the right hand side, on this side. As you can see over here, the concavity is more. That's because the diaphragm is little bit higher on the right hand side, because just inferior to this region is located the liver. Okay. So as you can see that the lung almost fills the thoracic cavity. Entire thoracic cavity is occupied by the lungs. Of course, in the middle, heart is also located. So most of the area of the thoracic cavity is occupied by the lungs. Now the apex, as we have seen, that it lies a little bit superior to the clavicles, so that it can be palpated. Okay. And the anterior, lateral and the posterior surfaces, these lie against the ribs. So these are the anterior, lateral and the posterior, the backside surface. So these lie against the ribs. And the base of the lung, as you can see, that this is the base, right? Okay, so it extends up to the 10th thoracic vertebra posteriorly, if you can see, up to the 10th thoracic vertebra. But the pleura, as you can see, that this black color outline, that is actually the pleura which is depicted over here. Now up to where the pleura is extending, this is the base of your lungs, right? But the pleura, it is extending about 5 cm below the base of the lungs on either sides, up to the 12th rib. So what you can say over here, the lungs are not completely filling this particular area, right, within this pleural cavity. So it is extending downwards, the pleural cavity, okay, because this one is the parietal pleura, and where is the visceral pleura? It is located over here. So this is the pleural cavity, right, which is extending downwards, which is not occupied by the lungs. So in case if there is any kind of excessive fluid accumulation which can take place within the pleural cavity, how you will remove it? It can be removed with the help of a needle which can be inserted in this particular region through the 7th intercostal space. It can be inserted to remove the excessive fluid which has accumulated in the pleural cavity. So, this particular procedure, it is known as thoracentesis. Centesis means puncture, to remove the fluid, excessive fluid which has accumulated in the pleural cavity. Now, coming to the lobes, fissures and the lobules of the lungs. Okay, we will go into much details now about the lungs. Okay. Now, as we have also discussed about the lobes when we have discussed about the bronchial tree. Remember, the lobar bronchi. So, the primary bronchi, they divide into the secondary bronchi depending upon the number of lobes in the lungs. So, we have seen that the right lung, it has 3 lobes and the left lung, it has 2 lobes. So, accordingly, the left primary bronchus, it will be divided into 3 secondary bronchi, right. So, there are 3, or these are also known as lobar bronchi, right, and the left primary bronchus, it will be divided into 2 secondary bronchi or 2 lobar bronchi. Sorry. Okay, so that's because the lung is divided, each lung is divided into specific number of lobes by the fissures. Remember what is a fissure? Longitudinal fissure, if you can recall, from the central nervous system. So, these are the grooves which are present, which will divide the lungs into specific number of lobes. Now, both the lungs have an oblique fissure, that is the one. Okay. As you can see, both the lungs have oblique fissure. So, the left lung, it is divided into only 2 lobes by this oblique fissure. So, it divides it into a superior lobe and an inferior lobe. But that is not the case with the right lung, right. It has 3 lobes. There is a superior lobe, there is a middle lobe and a inferior lobe. So, oblique fissure, it is actually dividing the superior part of this oblique fissure, it is actually dividing the superior lobe and the inferior lobe, right. So, it is separating the superior lobe from the inferior lobe. And the inferior part of the oblique fissure, it is actually separating the inferior lobe from the middle lobe. Whereas, there is one more fissure known as the horizontal fissure, which is in turn dividing the superior lobe from the middle lobe. Okay. So, apart from oblique fissure, there is also horizontal fissure which is dividing the superior lobe into 2. That is superior lobe and the middle lobe. Okay. Now, each lobe, as we have seen, that it receives the secondary bronchus or the lobar bronchus. Okay. So, the right pulmonary bronchus, it gives rise to 3 secondary bronchi or lobar bronchi, that is depending upon the lobes, the superior, middle and inferior secondary bronchi or lobar bronchi. Whereas, the left primary bronchus, it gives rise to superior and inferior secondary bronchi or lobar bronchi. because there are only 2 lobes. So, depending upon the names of the lobes, the secondary bronchi or the lobar bronchi can be named accordingly. Now, within the lungs, these secondary bronchi again give rise to the tertiary bronchi. Correct? It will divide further and give rise to the tertiary bronchi, right? We have seen over here. These are the ones. Or these are also known as segmental bronchi. So, each lung will contain round about 10 tertiary bronchi. So, why this particular tertiary bronchi is called as segmental bronchi? Because it will supply to each of the segment of the lungs. Okay. So, this particular region into which this segmental bronchi or the tertiary bronchi is supplying into, that region is known as bronchopulmonary segment of the lung. Now, each bronchopulmonary segment is further divided into small compartments. Many small compartments will be present within each bronchopulmonary segment to which the tertiary bronchi is supplied. So, these segments are known as the lobules. So, each lobule is wrapped in the elastic connective tissue. It will contain a lymphatic vessel, arteriole, venule and a branch from a terminal bronchiole. So, this picture shows a segment within which the lobules are present. So, this particular area is one lobule. So, this is surrounded by the elastic connective tissue and it contains a lymphatic vessel, as we have seen. The arteriole is present, the venule is present and a terminal bronchiole. So, further the tertiary bronchi will divide into still smaller tubules. These are known as the terminal bronchioles. Okay, bronchioles further will divide into smaller bronchioles known as the terminal bronchioles. So, each segment will be divided into lobules and each lobule will be surrounded by elastic connective tissue and specific structures will be present within it. So, it will be supplied by this terminal bronchiole, also the lymphatic vessels and the blood vessels, arterioles and the venules. As you can see the color of the blood vessels, now pulmonary arterioles are blue in color and venules are red in color. Why is it so? Actually, the arterioles carry the oxygenated blood, right? So, they are shown red in color and the venules are depicted in blue in color because they carry the deoxygenated blood. But in this region it is not so, because the lungs carry the process of oxygenation. So, pulmonary arterioles, the pulmonary arteries which divide into the pulmonary arterioles, they are actually carrying the deoxygenated blood, whereas the oxygenated blood is returning back through the pulmonary veins. That is why the colors are opposite in this particular region. Okay. Now, these terminal bronchioles, these will further branch into microscopic branches called as the respiratory bronchioles. Okay, here. So, it is dividing, right, further into the respiratory bronchioles, still smaller bronchioles which are known as respiratory bronchioles, and these have the alveoli budding from their walls. As you can see, small sac like structures which are budding from these respiratory bronchioles. So, these are known as the alveoli. Okay, so actually these alveoli are the ones which participate in the gaseous exchange. Okay, so actual exchange of these gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, it takes place at the alveolar wall. Okay, so these structures, that is the respiratory bronchioles and the alveoli, it comprises of the respiratory zone. So far we had discussed about the conducting zone. Now here onwards starts the respiratory zone, where exactly the exchange of gases is taking place. Okay. Now there are certain changes in the epithelium which is taking place over here. Okay, so it changes from simple cuboidal to simple squamous epithelium into these respiratory bronchioles. Further, these respiratory bronchioles will divide into the alveolar ducts. As you can see, this is the respiratory bronchioles. So this will divide into still smaller ducts known as the alveolar ducts. A number of ducts will be branching over here from the respiratory bronchioles. So these are known as the alveolar ducts, and this comprise of the simple squamous epithelium again. So as we have seen the branching of the respiratory passages, it starts from the trachea, right? So trachea, it divides into the primary bronchi, which are only two. Primary bronchi will divide into 2 or 3 secondary bronchi depending upon the number of lobes. Further division will take place into the tertiary bronchi, which in turn will divide into the bronchioles. Bronchioles will further divide into the terminal bronchioles, which are actually entering the lobules of the lungs, right? Further, the terminal bronchioles divide into the still smaller bronchioles known as the respiratory bronchioles, which in turn will divide into the alveolar ducts. So as you can see that this branching continues even within the segment within the lobules also. So there are round about 25 orders of branching. 25 times it will branch. So that's the first order of branching, right? Okay, that's the second order of branching. That's the third one. That's the fourth one. Okay, so further it will go on branching a number of times, and ultimately it will give rise to the alveolar ducts. Okay, some are the part of the conducting zone and some are the part of the respiratory zone. Okay, now coming to the alveoli, let us see what are the details of this alveoli. So we have seen that from the terminal bronchioles branch the respiratory bronchioles, and respiratory bronchioles further give rise to the alveolar ducts, right? And from the alveolar ducts are budding the alveoli, small sac like structures. These are the alveoli. Now there are two parts over here, alveoli and alveoli sacs. And alveolus, that is singular, it is a cup shaped outpouching. That's the one. That's one alveolus. Okay, this one. As you can see that there are number of alveoli, right? This is the one, second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, so on. There are number of alveoli which are present. So these alveoli, these are lined by the simple squamous epithelium, which is supported by an elastic basement membrane. There is something called an alveolar sac. So this is an alveolus, right? One alveolus. Now what is the alveolar sac? So alveolar sac, it consists of two or more alveoli that share a common opening. So as you can see over here, that's an alveolar sac, because all of these share common opening. So that collectively those alveoli are known as alveolar sac. Okay. Now coming to the composition of the walls of these alveoli. So these walls of alveoli, they comprise of two types of alveolar epithelial cells. Okay. The first one is the type 1 alveolar cells. Now these are more numerous, a more number of type 1 alveolar cells are present. So these are the simple squamous epithelial cells which forms the continuous lining of the alveolar wall. Now the second type of cell is the type 2 alveolar cells. So these are also known as the septal cells. Okay. So these are the type 1 alveolar cells. As you can see that it forms the most of the wall of the alveolus, right. So that's one cell, that is the second cell, this one, this is the one. Okay. So these type 1 cells are more numerous as compared to the type 2 cells. So these are also known as septal cells, which are present in between the type 1 cells. Okay. Now these type 1 alveolar cells, these are actually the sites of gaseous exchange. So the walls of these type 1 alveolar cells are involved in the exchange of gases. Okay, whereas the type 2 alveolar cells, which are either rounded or cuboidal epithelial cells, as you can see over here, these contain microvilli. As you can see on their surface, microvilli are present. So these mainly secrete the alveolar fluid. So a small amount of fluid is secreted which is lining the surface of the alveoli, inner surface. So it will keep this surface between the cells and the air moist. So that is the function of this alveolar fluid which is secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells. So this alveolar fluid which is secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells, it also contains surfactant. And what is the role of this surfactant? What is surfactant? It is a mixture of phospholipids and lipoproteins. Now what is the role? Why surfactant is present over here? That's to reduce the surface tension of the alveolar fluid. Otherwise what will happen? There is a fluid present over here, right, lining this wall. So this reduction in the surface tension by the surfactants, it reduces the tendency of this alveoli to collapse. Otherwise what will happen? The alveoli will collapse because there is a fluid present, right? It will tend to stick to each other. So these surfactants help in maintaining the patency, that is to keep the space open. Otherwise what will happen? If this collapse, what will happen? Imagine if this alveolus collapses, what will happen? Will the exchange of gases take place? No, it will not take place, right? So it will affect the gaseous exchange. So these alveoli needs to be kept patent, and that is made possible because of the presence of this alveolar fluid within which is present the surfactant, which reduces the surface tension. So also are present the alveolar macrophages or dust cell as they are called as. Okay. So these macrophages, what is the role of these macrophages? Is to phagocytose the fine dust particles which might have entered into the respiratory tract. So, also the debris. It is removed from these alveolar spaces by the alveolar macrophages or the dust cells. Apart from these, fibroblasts are also present which produce the reticular and the elastic fibers, which are required by the walls of the alveoli. Okay. So, this is the layer of type 1 alveolar cells, right. This is the one, as you can see, this one. Now, underlying this particular layer is present the elastic basement membrane. Okay. On the outer surface is present the elastic basement membrane. So, you can see it over here in this particular area where it is zoomed. So, that is the type 1 alveolar cell, and just outside this particular layer is present an epithelial basement membrane or the elastic basement membrane, which is a part of alveolar wall. Okay. Now, the outer surface of the alveoli, as you can see over here, a network of blood capillaries is present, right. Okay. So, these pulmonary blood vessels which are supplying to these lungs, this form a pulmonary capillary network, as you can see. Okay. So, these blood vessels, as you can see over here, these are present on the surface of the alveoli. So, outer surface of the alveoli, it is covered by a complicated network of the blood capillaries. Now, why do you think so it is present over here? Yes, of course, it is for the gaseous exchange to take place. Okay. So, whatever air is breathed in over here, it will contain the oxygen, it will be rich in oxygen, and the blood which reaches over here, so that will be rich in the carbon dioxide. So, obviously, the oxygen will be taken up by the blood and the carbon dioxide will be removed out, and this air will be exhaled out. Okay. So, for that matter, for this exchange of gases to take place between this alveolar space and the blood, a specific arrangement of the membrane is available across which these gases will be exchanged. So, these alveolar wall and the capillary wall together they constitute the respiratory membrane across which the exchange of gases is taking place. Okay. So, as we have seen that the alveolar wall, it is comprised mainly of the type 1 alveolar cell and the epithelial basement membrane or the elastic basement membrane, right. And you all have already studied about the blood capillaries. It comprises of endothelial cells which are lined by the capillary basement membrane. So, these four structures together comprises of the respiratory membrane across which the gaseous exchange is taking place. Okay. So, it will be comprising of a layer of type 1 and type 2 alveolar cells and the associated macrophages. So, this will form the alveolar wall. So, that is the first layer, this is the one. The second layer will be the epithelial basement membrane. Okay. So, that is your first layer, that is the second layer, epithelial basement membrane. Third layer will be capillary basement membrane, This is the one, that's the third layer, and the fourth layer is the capillary endothelium. This is the one, that's the fourth layer. So these are the four layers which together comprise of the respiratory membrane. Okay, so this is the composition of the respiratory membrane across which the gaseous exchange will take place. Now, though it comprises of several layers, the thickness of this respiratory membrane is very, very small. So, it is only 0.5 micrometer thick. Can you imagine the thickness of this membrane? It is round about 1/16 the diameter of the RBC. Now, why it is so? Why the size is so small? That is to allow the rapid diffusion of the gases. This gaseous exchange should take place very fast, right? Because you breathe in and breathe out at a very fast rate. So, imagine the speed with which the gaseous exchange should take place. That is why this arrangement is very, very thin. So, also the surface area which is provided by the alveoli, that is also very large. There are a number of alveoli which are present, round about 300 million alveoli are present within the lungs. So, can you imagine the amount of surface area which is provided for the gaseous exchange? That is round about 70 meter squares, which is round about equal to the racquetball court. So, this much area is available for the gaseous exchange. So, imagine with what speed it is occurring. So, these specialized arrangements are made available for the efficient exchange of the gases. Okay, now coming to the blood supply to the lungs. How exactly the blood supply is taking place. So, that is by two sets of arteries. One is the pulmonary arteries and the second one is the bronchial arteries. Now, pulmonary arteries, these are the only arteries in the body which carry the deoxygenated blood. Actually, arteries, they carry the oxygenated blood, right? But in this case it is carrying the deoxygenated blood, which is rich in the carbon dioxide. There is very less amount of oxygen. So, it passes into the pulmonary trunk, that is your pulmonary trunk. So, from the right ventricle of the heart, it pumps the blood into the pulmonary trunk. From here it divides into the right and the left pulmonary artery. So, right pulmonary artery will enter into the right lung, left pulmonary artery will enter into the left lung. So, this blood will be taken into the lungs, into the respiratory zone, exchange of gases will take place. As you can see that the deoxygenated blood, so here the gaseous exchange has taken place and the oxygenated blood is now returning back towards the heart. So, it is mainly returned back to the heart by way of 4 pulmonary veins. So, veins are the ones which actually carry the deoxygenated blood, but the pulmonary veins are the only ones which carry the oxygenated blood, which is drained into the left atrium. Okay, here. So, that is the left pulmonary vein and this one is the right pulmonary vein. So, it is draining the blood into the left atrium. The oxygenated blood returns back to the heart, it will move into the ventricles. So, ventricles will pump it into the aorta and it will be supplied throughout the body. Now, there is one characteristic feature about these pulmonary blood vessels is that they constrict in response to the localized hypoxia. Hypoxia is a condition wherein there is a low level of oxygen. Usually in all other body parts or tissues, hypoxia will result in dilatation of the blood vessels. Why? To bring in more oxygen. But here there is a reverse case which is happening. So, the blood vessels are constricting, that is, they will reduce in the diameter. Now, why it is happening? Hypoxia will result in the vasoconstriction. So, blood supply to the area where hypoxia is present, that is, less level of oxygen is present, that is the poorly ventilated area. So, less amount of blood will enter in these regions, and the well ventilated areas will receive more blood for more efficient gaseous exchange. Supposing if the hypoxia is taking place in this particular region, the blood will be diverted to other regions for more efficient gaseous exchange. So, this phenomenon is known as ventilation perfusion coupling. So, the perfusion, that is the blood flow, is increased in the area where there is extensive ventilation. So, to match the ventilation with the perfusion for more efficient gaseous exchange. Now, this is to do with the blood supply through the pulmonary trunk for the exchange of gases. Now, as an organ, will the lungs require the blood or no? Now, these are the blood vessels where exchange of gases is taking place, right? But what about the cells of the lungs? They also require the oxygen, right? They also need the energy to function. So, from where this supply will be provided? That is through the bronchial arteries. So, this is the branch of aorta, that is the aorta. The branches of the aorta, they will supply the lungs through the bronchial arteries. So, they will deliver the oxygenated blood to the lungs, cells of the lungs. Okay. So, this blood, it perfuses through the muscular walls of the bronchi and the bronchioles. So, these cells which are present over here, the smooth muscles which are present over here, so they will also need the energy and the oxygen which is provided by these bronchial arteries. Okay. So, these bronchial arteries may ultimately join the pulmonary arteries, so that the blood is returned back to the heart. But sometimes it may also return via the bronchial veins. So, bronchial veins in turn will drain into the superior vena cava, and from here it will reach back to the right atrium. Okay. So, this is how the flow of the blood takes place. Okay. The blood supply towards the lungs or the pulmonary circulation. So, this can be summarized as follows. The right ventricles, they will pump the deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary trunk. Pulmonary trunk divides into right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary artery. So, this will move towards the right lung, and left pulmonary artery will enter into the left lung. So, in the alveoli, the gaseous exchange will take place, the carbon dioxide will be removed, oxygen will be taken up by the blood, and the oxygenated blood, it will enter into the right pulmonary veins and the left pulmonary veins, which in turn will return the oxygenated blood to the left atrium. From here it will move into the left ventricles, and this will be supplied throughout the body. Okay. So, this is the schematic representation of the pulmonary circulation. So, we have discussed about the anatomy of the lungs. We have seen where it is located, mainly in the thoracic cavity. It is a paired organ. It comprises of several lobes. There are certain fissures which is dividing it into lobes. We have also seen the supply of the different air passages in different regions of the lung. Also the alveoli we have covered in detail, and the respiratory membrane where actually the gaseous exchange is taking place, and the blood supply towards the lung for gaseous exchange as well as to provide the energy and the oxygen to the cells and tissues of the lungs. Okay, so this is the reference. Thank you for watching.